Hello, Paul. We are live and people can hear our voice. So that was just a
Great.
recorded interview. And now,
I
Paul,
can see you.
welcome and thank you for chatting earlier and engaging earlier. So
Welcome.
what I'd like to do is just hand it over to you. You have a really interesting, perspective on basically a new economic model. So I'm really fascinated to hear this. I'll hand it over to you. If you'd like to share your screen, if you're going to present something, just go ahead and share it, and I can put that on screen as well. And then I'll drop out and maybe pop back in if people are asking questions or if I see anything going wrong. So
I have to share it again. Can you see my?
Not yet. I saw it briefly and then it disappeared.
Can you see it?
Not yet. Should be the similar to Zoom, little share screen. You can share your whole window, or you can share.
Yeah. I did. Let me redo it.
See it again. Let it catch up.
And now, can you see it?
Almost, yeah. And add to stream. There you go. So, Paul, my friend, you are good to go. You've got 27 minutes. So, and I'll pop back into it.
Yeah, give me a signal when I have to wrap up, because I can talk forever about this.
All right, thanks, Paul.
Yeah. So I'm going to lead you through a new model framework, if you will, about economics. And because what we have seen so far is that the current economic models, framework, if you will, are not working. And I call it the death of the GDP. So a little bit about myself. I'm Paul Epping. I live in Dubai. I have a company here, and that company is focusing on exponential transformation and everything that revolves around that. The work that I'm doing now, that I'm sharing with you actually, is what I'm studying for a long time, and always surprised that our economy is not really working. And I try to combine several models into one model, and that is what you see here. Don't worry about it. I will get back to that later, and work now through the components that makes this model in the end. So, and we are hearing a lot about exponential change today because of the coronavirus, and people are talking about the next normal. And I think, well, next normal, what is normal? These kind of buzzwords, to me, it doesn't mean anything. And then what I also hear is the great reset. Hey guys, if you do a reset, you are going back in time. And if it is great, probably it's a mainframe. It's like a computer who are resetting, you're going back in time. And that's not what we are going. We are going forward. So I think it's more about the never normal. But what is economics? So I underlined a couple of words that are important in this context, what I'm talking about. It is a social science. So think about it. It's a social science. So I think economics itself is not a science. We are talking about a science, but it is not a science. And it studies how we, businesses, whatever, how we are making choices and how we are satisfying wants and needs of people. And trying, you see, it's a science, but trying to determine how this group should organize and coordinate efforts to achieve maximum output. And that is the problem that we see today. And everything that we see around this is the GDP, the gross domestic product. And I'd say that it's a kind of a perfection of linear thinking over the last 70 years. And prospering economies, look at this. I think this is as thin as what you see here as a paperclip. And here are some some ideas what we see as that I see as a shortfall in the GDP. It is built during the manufacturing age, so a long time ago. And it is only focusing on things that can drop on your food, so products. And it is quantity and not about quality. Very difficult in this context to define quality. And it calculates things that are not related to what we are doing today, like using the internet full time. And that leads to a deflationary effect. And I will talk about it a little bit later. It's focusing on averages, whereas I think, well, medians are way more meaningful than what we are doing here. And what we just saw, to get that maximum output is connected to greed. We want more and more and more and more. But is that real good quality? I doubt that. And it's only about cash transactions. But if you are talking about things do it yourself, homework that we are doing, our housework, volunteering work is not in there. And I find it the GDP is an obsessive compulsive disorder because companies, countries, nations have to comply. Because if you are not following that rightly, then people are in stress, completely in stress. Because if you are 2 quarters a little bit lower than the line that is predicted, we are in a recession or in a depression if it is even a couple of more quarters. And what about health and education? It is only in there as costs, whereas those things are the pillars of a healthy economy. And here is the bad thing, you know. So here are economists and doing all kind of nice calculations to predict this linear line. And it doesn't make any sense anymore. And if you not comply to that, you know, it's 2% or 3% growth every year, then you are in problem. And what we see here is, especially in times of exponential technology and growth, we see this prediction is going the same thing, and we have to comply to that. It's just ridiculous. And then all of a sudden we have this pandemic, and now we have a problem. And everything, the new normal that McKinsey is talking about, and it's all fine that they are talking about it, but the new normal, in their opinion, is moving back to the GDP, whereas I think it's ridiculous. The GDP is, in this context, will not survive anymore. And hopefully that will be a blessing for all countries and companies. But we ring-fenced it. That is untouchable. That is the holy grail, and we have to follow that, because that gives you an insight how wealthy or how good a country is. But it is so short-sighted. That is the post-stamp view. The world is way bigger than only that. And this is the envelope to the short-sighted people. This is the GDP, ladies and gentlemen. It is trying to say something about a world that is way more complicated than what we express in the GDP, whereas the whole world is following that sliver. It's just ridiculous, and we have to think. And what does it to us? It is the emergence of greed. Well, let's pump out the oil and the gas and coal and materials and metals and wood, whatever, you know, just to fill the greed of people. That is fulfilling people's wants and needs. That's what we are doing. But is that really good? Is that the damage that we are causing to everything around us? The only thing that we have to live on is a planet, and we are just sickening it completely. But how are we going to fix this? What is the cure? Well, here is an analogy with our lungs. These are sick lungs, lung cancer. This is the earth. And what are we prescribing as a cure? Hey, guy, come on, smoke a little bit more, because that will help you. And that is exactly what we are doing. We make the problem worse. and worse and worse. And is that a kind of a great reset? I think we have to come up with something new, something radical different. This is what we see today, and I will come back to that because this is the bridge to the first paradigm that I'm talking about. These are, well, people who are in our community know this. There's all kind of exponential technologies from additive manufacturing to extended reality and biotechnology, etc. The interesting thing here is that these kind of technologies are merging, are converging, and that leads to new innovations, to new things that we cannot even imagine what will happen. But all those things today are somehow influenced or influenced with by artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence also embedded in these kind of technologies. But if we are looking to the economy that we are talking about, and including those exponential technologies, guys, we cannot solve the problem with the same thinking as we created the problem with. So I'm going now to tie those paradigms together. The first paradigm is the abundance and deflation. All the exponential technologies are leading in the end to deflation, because the scalability of digital technologies is at a cost as close to zero. The marginal costs are close to zero. And whereas in our current economy and how we are working in our economy, we are propping our economy full with trillions of dollars to keep an 80 trillion economy worldwide afloat. And during this corona crisis, we are just propping trillions to get the economy going. And we are creating a zombie economy. That's my big problem here. So the deflation, that means that there is a reduction of general the prices, the general level of prices, and that is what exponential technology does. The corona crisis showed that to us. Whereas we didn't drive anymore or flying over and down, we stayed at home, and we are using these kind of technologies, and it is easy to connect new people, new users to that, So we don't need to go to the offices. So this has a deflationary effect on real estate. So do we need that many office space anymore, or do we need to travel to a conference like this? Well, I don't think so. So that has a deflationary effect, and we have no idea today how to deal with it. And we see that everywhere. A couple of examples here in the energy sector. So the energy is deflating as well. It's getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And it's even, now the oil price is way down, is even the alternative energy cheaper than fossil. But we have to stop with the fossil energy anyway. So, but also cultured meat that we can buy today, and still in labs, but it is also on an exponential curve. Or printed meat based on plant protein, and that is taking off quickly. And you see here, and together by doing these kind of things, more in the digital technology, more these of kind of alternative food that we consume, is one of the activities that we as a community can become a kind of a gigacorn. A gigacorn are those people working on reducing the carbon in our atmosphere. And a lot of activities and initiatives are going on there, but I'm not touching on that here. It's way too much to talk about. But this is the underlying structure of how that deflationary character exists or evolves. Everything can be digitized, and up in the end, we do have a democratization. Means that it is for everybody accessible and almost for free. And so we are trying to digitize the activities around a problem, focus on the SDGs because there are the opportunities and the biggest problems to keep our planet alive. Because if we are continuing with what we are doing business as usual, the great reset or the new normal, guys, we won't survive. Very simple. And if people don't see that, then you are really blind. But if the view is that post-stamp, then I can imagine that. So we have to shake people up and see that total envelope. But what we also have to be very, very aware of is that we shouldn't run into socialism and so solutionalism. That means that we cannot solve everything with technology. So we have to be very careful with that. It is a kind of technological fallacy. So, but building a new model on this deflationary and abundance character is not enough. We have to think a little bit deeper, because if you are a digital company and a big tech company, why are you avoiding to pay taxes, for instance? And what are you doing with all those data and the storage of those data, my data? What are you doing with that? So that brings us to the second model, and that is the donut model. Developed by Kate Robert. It is a social model, and this has a lot of interest in the circular economy, shared economy, and it focuses on the shortfall in our societies on the social side. So there's a lot of inequality, and that is perfectly shown by this model. Whereas on the other hand, we are eroding our environment in a too fast way. The nature has no time to repair itself and to recover. This is in a nutshell, in a donut shell, if you will, what she is talking about. And this is really important to include, to use it in parallel with that deflationary digital world. And to give you an example about what we are using to fill our needs and our wants, we need 3 planets. Well, we don't have it. And what Kate Robert says, well, we have to think in a little bit different way now. Change the goal and get rid of this GDP fixation and see that big picture, see that envelope and not the stamp, And we only have one planet, and we are eroding our planet, and we are moving towards a kind of a death valley, an abyss. And we see that, we all see that, but we are not acting like that. Oh, technology probably will solve the problem, etc. So it should be designed to distribute and not to degenerate. And it should be agnostic about growth. It should include quality and value. But this model has also a shortfall in itself. It's not talking about the digital world that is approaching quickly. How are we going about with it? And on one hand, if we have inequality, what will be the inequality in a couple of years from now in the world of digital technology? What about trust? Trust is the future currency. If we are not trusting the technology that we are developing because it is run by algorithms that probably are 100% sure biased, are we trusting that? Those questions is what we have to ask, but that is not included in the donut model. So that's why I think that we have to go a little bit outside the thinking of economic models or technology, but go back to ourselves, because we only can change economies if we change ourselves. And I love the work that Scott Kaufman is doing. He revisited Maslow's hierarchy, and Maslow's hierarchy is actually the work that we see in the pyramid is unfinished work, and he tried to finish it and came up with this thing. And I'm using this because at the top now we have the purpose, and it's not the self-actualization. That's a very, very difficult to grasp that. But this purpose, love, exploration, is how we are growing once the stability is there in safety, connection, and self-esteem. And we can reach that through education. Education will help us to do that, but not in the traditional way as what we do today. What we should do is moving from content to skills, from exams. Get rid of the exams, doesn't make any sense. Go to global solutions and try to solve those. Classrooms, out, over. But work on innovation hubs. Our subjects change that by interdisciplinary approach of certain problems, and not standardized stuff that has been approved, has to be approved by governments and whatever, Go to personalized, because I'm learning differently than you do, and I have different needs, and how can I fulfill those? And it should be student-led, and it should not be stressed because of examinations, but it should ignite your awe factor, your curiosity, etc., and not focusing on answers, but on questions. Why are we not organizing examinations, if you will, not asking for answers, but asking for questions? Because questions brings us to solutions. Einstein came to his brilliant things by questioning it. And if you ask him, are you so smart? And he said, no, I'm only hanging longer in with questions and questioning myself. And the future is trust and empathy. That is our future currency. We have to move towards that direction. And it is an important part in our new economic model. It is a prerequisite to understand your own purpose and the purpose of your family and the purpose of your company. And that is a kind of consciousness that we can bake in our new economic model. And we see all kind of movements way more conscious than, for instance, the Republicans that we see in the US. They are just completely in denial about climate change and think that all the science around that is suspicious. Well, guys, anyway, so that's a different story, but it is really very, very problematic. So then the fourth paradigm is about, I call it the inclusive, massive, transformative purpose. And it is inclusive because we are, as a community, we have to create the values for stakeholders. We have to include it in what we are doing. We have to see it as a holistic exercise. That is why I think we are missing the I in the massive transformative purpose. It should be including. It should include life, as you can see in the new framework. The new framework has these three elements, and I will add the fourth in a special way. And it should be a balance between social foundation and the abundance and deflation. And then on the top you see we have the left and the right brain. The left brain should be the responsibility, the conscious agent of what we are doing in the exponential technological world, in the digital world, whereas the diversity, the creativity is more connected to the social foundation. That is where we can get the diversity in our society, and it should include life, everything on this planet, life, not only human beings, everything that lives here should be nurtured and should be included. And if we are building a strategy or whatever, include that. What are the impacts of our decision, of our products, of our services on life in general. And we have the quantity that we see on the left hand, and we have the quality on the right hand. And those two things are connected now with the MTP. And the MTP is a kind of the DNA of our system. And on the left hand, again, you see the sustainability should be established, whereas on the other hand, using the technology that we can bring in more dynamic. But all what we are doing revolves around trust. And by doing that, hopefully we can not focusing on that sliver that we saw in the GDP, but by changing it by global developmental purpose. I think that is a new way of seeing and working, and that should be replacing our GDP that we see today. And I have some recommendations. Stop the GDP as a compact. Out of the door. It's just hindering us. It's just fake. It is just not right. And I think worldwide, all the prime ministers, presidents, whatever, should be younger than 50 years old. Those oldies that are now governing the world, they don't understand the technology where we are. Get rid of them. It should be mandatory that the people who are governing companies, organizations, but also companies should be younger than 50. And 70% of them should be women, because I believe that women can change the world. And the education should train future capabilities. And an example could be the academy. Go there, academy.org, and you can see how the world could look like. And ban all traditional economic studies from the universities. No economic studies anymore, because it is not social. It is not a social science. It is something in itself. And all public companies should have a clear IMTP. I hear you, Chris. Do I have to wrap up?
No, keep going. Sorry.
Okay.
I was just putting the Academy link in the comments. I'll shut up a little bit.
Yeah.
You keep going. Just Francisco's not here yet, so keep talking. Right. Probably have another 5 minutes. So I'm
right.
I'm waiting for this recommendation part, because I was thinking, what can we do? So yeah. Please keep going. Yeah.
So, and all the public companies that are IPOs, they should have an IMTP as a part of their IPO. If they don't have it, they cannot go public. We should be very straight and bold in that. And skip the Nobel Prize of Economy and replace it with the Nobel Prize for Earth Preservation. That is a way better thing that we have to do. And ban all the companies visiting and presenting at the World Economic Forum. And those companies that don't have a sustainability at the core of the business that they are doing, don't let them in. But also, the World Economic Forum itself has to change. And I think it should be a sustainable world forum and led by different people. No economists, no lobbyists, no whatever, We have to get now right. We have to make it right now. It is too stupid for word, what we are doing. We are running into our death with our eyes closed. So we have to change that. And today's economy doesn't work. But why are we still continuing? Why are we going to do that great reset, or being completely addicted to that GDP that doesn't say anything? And converging insights to create a new, and that will be the new, if you are talking about the new normal, the new era, new insights will converge. And this is an example of that. And don't fight existing systems, but transform them. And it should be inclusive, regenerative, and regenerative business by design, IMTP. And there is a lot of information out there, and please go there. So I'm working on this framework, and if you want to invest in that, great. I'm working on a book and happy to give you a free copy if you pay the book up front. These are my inspiration sources. I can recommend you all of them. Read them all. I read a lot of work around Joseph Stiglitz. He is one of the Nobel Prize winners of economy. and he completely shifted his mindset. It's amazing. And people who are not awake yet, read our final warning, The 6 Degrees of Climate Emergency. Mark Linus, read that book. It's fascinating. But also Mariana Mazzucato, she is talking about the value. We are not valuing the things as we should value. And so that it's a lot of things are overpriced. So guys, I kept it really short and I rushed through it. Hopefully you found it interesting. And if you want to know more, please keep in touch with me. You can connect with me here.
So if they email you at your paul@eqexponential.com, then they can get a copy of this presentation maybe and learn
Absolutely.
how to support your book and get your reading list. So
yeah,
great.
Everything.
Perfect.
Everything there. So I made it 2 minutes over.
Bravo. Thank you so much. And Francisco
Bravo.
is in Hopper. I see his smiling face down below us. So Paul, thank you so much for taking your time, not only like a week or so ago for our interview for the podcast, but also for taking this time and sharing this vision. It's thought-provoking, it's challenging, it's confronting, and I really hope you continue with it. So thank you, Paul.
Absolutely. Thank you.